Every time you have sex with someone, you will lose your special glue. And when you have lost all of your special glue, no husband will love you. I was told that as a teenager at an all-girls school, a school that boasts how well its students perform academically, a school that wasn't even especially religious, somewhere around the year 2010. My school was expected to give me sex education, but it wasn't mandated to. It would be another decade till relationships and sex education was made compulsory for teenagers like me in England. At the time, it had already been 10 years since the last time the curriculum had been updated. So not only did the conversations and life I was having online seem completely irrelevant to my teachers, so did the fact that congressional studies in the United States had discovered the total failure of abstinence-only programs. Neither of those things mattered. It was far more important to feed me disinformation about special glue. My name is Sophia Smith-Gaylor, and I'm here to talk to you about sex education, but maybe sex education not as you've always thought about it, because sex ed is not my job. I am a journalist. I'm a senior news reporter at Vice World News, and I am the author of Losing It, a book that tackles sex myths using investigative and social media journalism. My TikToks on everything from news reporting to language, gender equality, sexual health have been seen over 130 million times. And I'm part of a still small group, a new generation of journalists who've become content creators in order to make sure that we reach younger audiences. But what I'm also trying to do is reach people like me, curious about the world, but victim to misinformation on and offline, experiencing harms as a result. Because it's not kids or teenagers that I see every day in classrooms. What I get to see is the news cycle. So I see things like a politician falsely claiming emergency contraception is abortion, or I see an MP who has watched porn in the House of Commons in front of his colleagues. It's YouTube videos I see where men tell other men to ignore women when they say no to sex. It's the vaginal wands I see being sold online that erroneously claim they're going to improve sexual function and tighten women's anatomy. I see TikTok after Instagram post, after tweet, saying something completely false about our bodies and our minds. I'm here today to talk about how people of all ages are still being failed by a world that under-prioritizes, under-supports sex education, ignores developing real-world digital literacy, and allows sex misinformation to proliferate. You might think that the sort of thing I got told by that special glue lady was a thing of the past. This year in the UK, a father direct messaged me to tell me that his daughter had been taught in a British school that contraception was not real love. I have had a mother email me recently to say that her son is being told to stay chaste until marriage with no alternative perspective or evidence base. More than one teacher has told me that either parents or the school's board of governors have prevented them from teaching primary school children the word vulva, just vagina for the whole area, penis and testicles, fine, vagina and vulva, not fine, because they erroneously believe vulva is going to sexualize their children, not that it will protect them from harm or build a shame-free knowledge base for when they communicate with partners and healthcare professionals when they're older. In my book, Losing It, I try to capture the impact of biased and misleading information that we hear about sex. I do so by charting the myths, by charting the harms that are caused by 7 different sex myths across virginity, falsehoods around the hymen and perceptions of tightness, the belief that sex must be penetrative to be sex, that men must initiate sex and be virile, that it's unnatural to not want to have sex, and that consent is simple to understand. In a world where education systems still do not prepare us for power dynamics, gendered social scripts that we all go on to encounter and that we should all be empowered to challenge. Information is literally how we make informed choices about our lives. So when we hear false information, that is misinformation, which may be shared with us harmlessly, unknowingly, or disinformation, told to us deliberately to suit someone's agenda, we take that false information and we make choices about it. I'll give you two examples. A 2017 Lebanese study found that of 416 women interviewed, about 40% of them reported having anal or oral sex to protect their hymen for marriage. So their sexual behaviors had been dictated not by personal choice, but by fear of what was going on with a very insignificant membrane they'd been told held the key to their future happiness. I'll give you another example. In the UK, 61% of 14 to 17-year-olds in a survey by the Family Planning Association said they believed you cannot withdraw sexual consent if you are already naked. I know the impact that an idea like that can have because I was one of the 61%. It happened to me. I didn't know I could stop or leave the scenario I found myself in that I didn't want to be in anymore. I was fed a cacophony of false ideas about sex as a young woman, that it was normal for sex to be painful for women, that I had to sort of gatekeep my sexuality from boys who wanted it all the time, that boys masturbated and never girls. All of those statements are false, but I had no idea. As an 18-year-old, I not only struggled to identify unethical sex, I discovered I'd developed vaginismus, a psychosexual pain disorder where my brain and my body would miscommunicate. My pelvic floor would spasm when insertion was attempted, making sex, tampons, pap smears painfully impossible. The little, very little research, and if anyone here is doing research, please do more on this condition, but the little research that has been done says patients cite often poor sex education and fears around sex rooted in myth. Had I not found out, had I not gotten better, I don't know how much of me would still be left here today. But my experience is a powerful driver behind the work that I do, because not enough has changed quickly enough. Sex educators I interview globally have watched resources and training decline, not improve. Power dynamics, gendered social scripts, these are all still absent in curriculums from being addressed. Young people still get digital literacy lessons years behind what they are actually doing online, and they're getting these lessons too late. So one young woman I interviewed said that her school spoke to her about image-based sex abuse when she was 16 years old. But years earlier, she had been coerced into sending a male classmate a naked picture. So that lesson came far too late. At Vice World News, a number of the stories I have broken have highlighted this gap in provision for young people and training for teachers. My freedom of information requests have shown that barely any teachers are downloading the government's free sex education slides that the government keep trying to recommend them, particularly the ones connected to digital literacy. And one teacher suggested to me it's because the slides were really poor quality. Another investigation showed that the government had not spent the £6 million they had promised to train teachers in England to teach our new curriculum, that curriculum that had not been updated for 20 years, and had in fact only spent about half, and then decided to reinvest the rest of the money into other departmental priorities and then not tell anyone about it. Is it any surprise that I also discovered and exposed that an anonymous US donor has given over $100,000 to an anti-abortion group in Britain, specifically to go into schools for free to spread their message? As someone in news media, I'm often privileged with a platform, but equally, I've witnessed news media's continuing struggle to reach young people. So in the sex misinformation crisis, I am here investigating, pitching, TikToking, trying to fight misinformation on the platforms that I find them on, and not only on traditional news media. As education systems still fail us, I think social media output needs to be far better prioritized and capitalized. It's not only how we reach people still at school, it's how we reach us, people long out of the education system, still subscribing and subjected to sex myths. But social media also carries huge flaws. I've had a screenshot of my book, Losing It, hidden on Twitter. I've had a TikTok about condom research taken down. Creators who monetize their platforms often can't when the video is about sex ed because of censorious moderation policies. As we've heard here at the ICFP, ads around products that would help dysfunction, like the one I had, get taken down, that, if accessed, would help people find healthcare solutions they didn't even know existed. And as I found in numerous investigations for Vice World News, as well as the BBC previously, platforms are also far too often amplifying sex misinformation on their algorithms. So I ask social media platforms, who are part of sex education's future, as governments still scramble to better protect us, to wake up to this role that they have in sex education and stop suppressing and deplatforming content around sexual and reproductive health, rights, and justice. I also ask for power holders in media and government to do way more for us. Television commissioners with their own channels don't need to worry about censoring algorithms. They could be far more ambitious with their programming. Governments could better fund and commission training, research, content that informs us on and offline. Curriculums should be compulsory and legally protected. This year, I've investigated numerous far-right groups who are trying to mislead parents and get their votes by telling them that sex education is sexualizing their children. That is one of the biggest pieces of disinformation out there right now. Comprehensive sex education delays sexual initiation and protects young people from innumerable harms. It would have protected me. Whether it comes from the school corridor or the corridors of power, the front page, the For You page, your parent, even your partner, we all have a social responsibility to counter sex misinformation when we see and hear it. We also should be demanding that those who hold power educate in misinformation's place. We must demand the space is populated with robust, comprehensive, inclusive sex education that's as engaging as the content that we are battling with in the vertical video age. We must innovate and we must advocate. My small contribution to this space is to try and bring the practices of the newsroom into the bedroom, investigating, interviewing, TikToking, and storytelling. We live in a sex misinformation crisis. What is your role going to be in it? Thank you.